First at 4, breaking details on a sickening attack targeting a young girl in Altona. Plus, Alistair Clarkson forced to apologise for an explosive reaction to an ugly bump. A truckie faces court over a bus crash that injured dozens of students in Bacchus Marsh. Police access crucial new information in the search for a missing Ballarat mother.
And I'm live from Yarraville with special coverage on Melbourne's booming west. Exclusive access inside the Westgate Tunnel project.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7 Afternoon News with Mike Amor and Rebecca Maddern.
Good afternoon. We'll cross live to Rebecca Maddern in Yarraville soon for this special edition of 7's Afternoon News. But first, a 14-year-old has been attacked by 5 other girls at Altona Pier with someone filming the violence. The teen was with friends on Wednesday afternoon when they were approached by a second group of young people. Police say the violence continued until a man intervened. The victim was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. No one has been arrested over the cruel attack. Alistair Clarkson has been forced to apologise over a fiery exchange with 2 St Kilda players. Laura Spurway has more on this developing story. And Laura, it happened after a North Melbourne star was concussed in an ugly bump.
Mike Clarkson couldn't keep his composure when his captain Jai Simpkin was concussed just before quarter time in North Melbourne's practice game against the Saints yesterday. Shortly after the collision, Clarkson let rip at St Kilda's Jimmy Webster, who was responsible for the hit, and Dougal Howard after he defended his teammate. Alistair Clarkson has released a statement this afternoon addressing his behaviour. It says, "This was an exchange that was emotional in defence of our captain, but unnecessary, and the language I used was inappropriate. I've reached out to Ross Lyon and both the St Kilda players to apologise." Now, St Kilda hasn't addressed the apology, but earlier today I spoke with senior coach Ross Lyon about Webster's bump.
He's devastated. He's really concerned for Jai. Very remorseful, but it was a split-second action. Go to tribunal. Clearly, there's no defence to it. And, you know, we always support the person and change the behaviour.
At 6, we'll hear more from Lyon and also have the latest from the AFL Tribunal, Mike.
Laura, thank you.
A court's been told the truckie ignored problems with his brakes in the lead up to a highway crash that injured dozens of school bus passengers west of Melbourne. A hearing is underway to determine whether the driver will stand trial, as Rochelle Brown explains.
Multiple children may be called to testify about the extent of their injuries during the 4-day committal hearing. Brett Russell is facing multiple charges, including dangerous driving causing serious injury. According to court documents, dashcam footage shows the truck driver weaving in and out of the right-hand lane at speed after the limit was reduced to 40 kilometres for an unrelated accident. Police allege he ignored warning signs to brake and rear-ended the school bus, forcing it to roll down an embankment off the Western Highway at Pentland Hills in September 2022. There were 35 victims in total, 10 adults and 25 students, all on their way to the airport for the trip of a lifetime at a NASA space camp in the US. The physical injuries ranged from bruising to an almost foot amputation. The court heard multiple passengers still have psychological injuries and are not coping. According to court documents, Mr Russell told police he knew there were issues with the truck that day that could affect the efficiency of his brakes, and his trailer brakes lost air 5 kilometres before the crash, but instead of pulling over, he pushed on. Mr Russell will learn if he will be committed to stand trial at the end of the hearing.
Police investigating the disappearance of Ballarat mother Samantha Murphy now have access to crucial new information. Phone data is helping detectives find out who was in the area when the 51-year-old went missing. Emma O'Sullivan has this development.
Detectives are now trawling through new mobile phone data. They now have new information that will show them who else's mobile phone was detected around Ballarat East at the same time that Samantha Murphy's phone was detected. That will be a time-consuming task for the Missing Persons Squad, as the area around bushland near Sam Murphy's home is well populated.
It's an enormous task, When you've got nothing else, you've got to throw the net quite large out there.
Detectives from a range of specialist squads have now joined the case, and police are dealing with almost 800 pieces of information reported by members of the public. They also have almost 12,000 hours of CCTV to study as part of the investigation. Sam Murphy is described by friends as a devoted mother of three. She's now been missing for 29 days. Her family said she left the house for her regular run on a Sunday morning. Phone metadata has previously led police to search a new area in Ballarat 10 days ago. Now police have new information that will hopefully lead to the breakthrough they desperately need.
There's a ring of steel around Melbourne this afternoon for the first day of the ASEAN summit. We have reporters covering Australia's biggest meeting of international leaders in years. Let's go first to Geordie Wright outside the Convention and Exhibition Centre. And Geordie, protesters are targeting the summit.
Mike, activists have just begun to gather out the front of the Convention Centre where the ASEAN Summit is taking place. It's prompted protests about the human rights abuses in the Philippines and Myanmar, calling on the Australian government to advocate for democracy and put an end to the violence that's seen tens of thousands of civilians tortured and killed.
They want to achieve peace and stability in the Southeast Asia region, but however, Australia cannot achieve this without a proper solution for Myanmar issue.
They're not only bombing the infrastructure, also the schools, especially the children inside.
More protests are planned this afternoon and over the coming days. Security has been ramped up for the 3-day summit. There's a heavy police presence around Docklands and South Wharf that's prompted snap road closures, seeing delays. Motorists are advised to avoid the area. Mike.
Geordie, thank you. Let's go now to political reporter Rob Scott. Rob, Foreign Minister Penny Wong is using the summit to urge Southeast Asian leaders to be bold as they stare down the threat of an increasingly aggressive China.
Mike, trade and regional security are the hot button issues at this summit. The Foreign Minister Penny Wong using her speech to delegates this morning to warn that the future prosperity of this region relies on maintaining peace. And while she didn't call out China by name, she says it is a shared responsibility to make sure that no country is dominated and no one country dominates.
We face destabilising, provocative and coercive actions, including unsafe conduct at sea and in the air, and militarisation of disputed features. These factors give rise to the most strategic, most confronting circumstances in our region for decades.
There are 9 Southeast Asian leaders in Melbourne for this summit. It is the largest diplomatic gathering in Australia since 2018. The Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim was given a ceremonial welcome on the lawns of Government House this afternoon. And apart from the ASEAN summit, the city also played host to a meeting of the Federal Cabinet this morning. That comes after that Dunkley by-election on Saturday, a seat that Labor did manage to hold on to, but there was a 3.6% swing to the Liberals. The message from voters in that electorate loud and clear. They need more help to get through these tough economic times.
Today it's back to work. Back to work on cost of living, back to work on how we create more jobs.
Mike, families will have to wait to see if any more relief is on the way. If any is coming, it's unlikely to be announced before the May budget.
Rob, thank you.
And 7 News meteorologist Jane Bunn joins me now in Yarraville this afternoon. It's very nice to be here, Jane. We are in for a very warm week, aren't we?
We are indeed, Beck. It'll be well above average overall, but in typical Melbourne fashion, it'll go up and down. The initial heat up begins tomorrow and it lasts into Wednesday. Now, it's not extreme heat this time, but in the low 30s for Melbourne, with a warm night in between. The cool change arrives on Wednesday afternoon, but there's no chill in behind it, not like we experienced on the weekend. And it doesn't last. The roller coaster rapidly moves upwards again, delivering extreme heat as we head into the long weekend. I'll have full details shortly.
Thank you very much, Jane. Well, Melbourne's west is booming with new data revealing the area, including Bacchus Marsh, Melton and Wyndham Vale, has an annual growth rate of 3.1%. After a dip during the pandemic, numbers have bounced back and growth is now outstripping that of Greater Melbourne.
Population growth in Western Melbourne really is going gangbusters. Over the last decade, it's added almost 250,000 people, and now there's sort of almost 930,000 people living in Melbourne's west. It's very diverse, but you are seeing those sort of new migrants to Australia. You're also seeing sort of first home buyers looking for that affordability. And it's not unknown that sort of you also have older couples sort of downsizing from an existing property into that sort of turnkey, brand new house they might have been looking for their whole life. All the additional growth coming into Melbourne, sort of 1 in 3 new residents have ended up in Melbourne's west.
Now, the Westgate Tunnel project is at the centre of the state government's plan to improve access to the western suburbs, but it's been plagued with cost blowouts and delays. Next, we'll have an exclusive look at the works and can reveal when it'll open.
And later, the King's planning to visit Australia. Now, premiers are fighting to lure the monarch to their states. Hear Victoria's pitch soon. All that and more ahead on this special edition of 7's Afternoon News. A 13-year-old boy has been released on bail despite being charged over a sickening attack on a woman in Dandenong North. Police say a 28-year-old woman was jogging when the teenager pinned her down and tried to rip off her clothes. She managed to fight him off before he fled on a bike. The Rowville boy has been charged with stalking, false imprisonment and sexual assault.
It's been a source of debate for years and driver frustration, but the long-awaited Westgate Tunnel project is expected to be finished at the end of next year. Now, earlier today, I toured the labyrinth of roads, bridges and underpasses that will soon link the West with major city thoroughfares, speaking to Executive Director Peter Lelliott. When you say Westgate Tunnel project, everybody thinks just tunnels, but there is a huge amount of bridge infrastructure as well.
Absolutely. So as you can see, we've got the tunnels that finish just over the other side of the river, and yet it's several kilometres before we get to the City Link, and all of this is built on brand new structures that connect to the City Link and also to the Port of Melbourne.
With this whole project, what is going to be the main benefits to the community?
So many benefits. In a traffic sense, it takes 20 minutes off the journey from Geelong if you're heading through to here. It takes 9,000 trucks a day off the local roads to allow them direct access into the port. It provides a vital crossing, a second crossing for the Westgate Bridge, so that it takes the pressure off Westgate Bridge, and it widens the Westgate Freeway from 8 lanes out to 12 lanes, improving traffic flow all the way from the M80 right through to the Westgate Bridge.
This is such a huge undertaking, huge amount of hours on this project.
Yeah, we've just gone past 50 million hours worked. We've had a fantastic crew of men and women working on this project for many years now. They work around the clock and they've done a fabulous job.
The project is obviously over time. Is it going to be finished by 2025, next year, late 2025?
We're pretty confident about late 2025, and we'll be looking forward to seeing traffic come onto this structure, for example, by then.
It's obviously over budget, we're well aware of that. Started in the millions, we're now in the billions. It's a hefty price to pay for the Victorian taxpayer, but are the benefits going to outweigh the cost eventually? It is a very, very expensive project.
It is a very expensive project, but it's a vast asset, and it's badly needed to, as I said, to take the pressure off the Westgate Freeway and the Westgate Bridge, to provide for the vital economic benefit that the port provides for Melbourne and Australia, and also to expand for a growing population for the west of Melbourne for decades to come.
What have been the biggest problems with this project? I mean, every project has problems, but this one has had some significant ones. There was a huge delay, almost 12 months, with toxic soil.
There was a delay quite a number of years ago now with contamination where we had to find a solution. The solution took a little while to get resolved because we needed to take a very safe approach to the community and to the environment. But that was well and truly resolved back at the beginning of the year before last. The tunnelling's now finished, the tunnel road deck is all finished, and so we're now in the final stages of building out the structures, and those delays are well and truly behind the project.
Talk to me about the tunnels specifically. I think they're an engineering feat. It's quite incredible.
They are. They're 15.6 metres in diameter, so that allows for a full 3-lane freeway to go through each of the 2 tunnels. We have all of the services below the road level so they can maintain them without disrupting the traffic, and they're up to 4 kilometres long, so they're a very substantial tunnel, some of the biggest tunnel boring machine type tunnels in the world.
as part of the project. How it interconnects is a mystery to me. There's parts of the project that are very intricate.
They are, and there's a lot of entries and exits. So we have new connections along the Westgate Freeway, we have the tunnel connections, and also through this area where we're building so many bridge structures to make sure that we can cater for all the movements that people might like to make, and also for the truck traffic going in and out of the Port of Melbourne. Then we've got lots of entry and exit ramps. It does look very complex, and it's one of the most complex engineering structures that has ever been done in Australia.
Who is going to benefit from this most? Is it everyday commuters or is it freight? Because obviously it connects and it's right here at the port.
Look, there are so many people that will benefit, from the residents that live along the Westgate Freeway, where we've built more than 9 kilometres of new noise walls to protect those homes from noise, to bike riders that come in from the inner west of Melbourne that'll have dedicated cycling paths, to the freight industry that can get in and out of the port, commuters coming from Geelong that might be heading to the airport that will save 20 minutes off their travel time, or people who just continue to use the Westgate Freeway and go over the Westgate Bridge, where there will be in excess of 20,000 less vehicles per day over the Westgate Bridge.
We must make mention of the Westgate Bridge. That's not going anywhere.
No, it's not. No, that's an important asset for Melbourne. It does a huge task in terms of the transport needs of Victorians, and this project is designed to take a bit of pressure off it.
Because of the blowout in time, that obviously equates to a blowout in cost. We've got an upcoming budget. Are we going to get another blowout?
No, we're not. No, we came to an arrangement several years ago with Transurban and the builder, and we're sure that the project is on track and that there'd be no further cost increases to the agreement.
In the scale of builds for Melbourne, how big is this?
This is a transformational project for the west of Melbourne. It's the biggest project ever, biggest investment ever in the inner west of Melbourne. It goes all the way from the city. It goes out to the M80 interchange. It will change the travel patterns that are there for people, and to change what's available for decades and decades to come. So totally transformational.
If we didn't do this, what would Melbourne be?
Well, I think for such a long time, people have been anxious about the trucks in the inner west, that 9,000 trucks a day that we can take out of the inner west and put into Westgate Tunnel, the congestion that people have experienced, and we do know that they've experienced disruption during the build of the project, and we acknowledge that, but this is a solution to congestion. This helps people's traffic needs, and if you don't build these sorts of projects, then you simply don't have an answer to congestion going forward.
Well, thank you very much for taking me, I suppose, on a walk into the future.
Thank you.
Sport is coming up after the break with details on Clayton Oliver's return to the AFL. Also, 3 debutantes unveiled at the Demons for their season opener against the Swans. And the tumbleweeds taking over a suburban neighbourhood. 7 News continues after this short break.
Welcome back to 7's Afternoon News. We are coming to you live from Melbourne's west this afternoon. It is 20 degrees in Yarraville right now. Jane Bunn will return with the forecast for your first week of autumn a little later in the hour.
Abbey Gelmi is here now with this afternoon sport, and Abs Clayton Oliver is back for the Demons.
Mike, the star midfielder will play in Thursday's season opener against the Swans. Coach Simon Goodwin says there were some doubts of his return, but is proud of how far Oliver has come after his troubled off-season.
We've gone about a process to get him to this point. It's not finished, but he's healthy, he's happy, he's ready. We're united and connected as a footy team, and that's been a big part of our summer. And he's a big part of that. So he's done everything we could have asked of him as a footy club to get himself into this position, and he's right to go.
The Demons announced 3 debutants, including first-round pick Caleb Windsor, former Saint Jack Billings and 20-year-old Blake Howes. St Kilda's Jimmy Webster will learn his fate tomorrow, where it's expected he'll front the AFL tribunal. His bump left North Melbourne captain Jai Simpkin concussed in yesterday's clash.
So obviously the landscape continually evolving. It's just a very difficult situation. So really concerned for both lads, in particular Jai, because heavy physical contact. Jimmy's remorseful and just coming in now to talk about go to the tribunal.
We'll have the full match review outcome tonight in our 6 o'clock bulletin. The young Matildas are in the World Sporting Spotlight, forced to play in absurd conditions in their Under-20 Asian Cup opener against Korea in Tashkent. Battling a thick layer of snow in -2 degrees, it was a 90-minute goal that clinched a 2-1 victory for the visitors.
For some of the players, it was actually the first time for them to see snow, so it was about just calming them down, making them understand that these are the conditions that we're going to have to adapt to.
Their next clash is against host Uzbekistan on Wednesday night. United's Marcus Rashford opened the Premier League's Manchester derby with a rocket.
Oh, wow! Marcus Rashford, who loves to score in a Manchester derby.
Lucky for Erling Haaland, this one didn't cost Man City. Phil Foden levelled with a sensational strike, then scored again as City won 3-1 to sit a point behind Liverpool. Alex de Minaur has defended his Acapulco title in Mexico, solidifying his place in the world's top 10. The Aussie defeated three-time Grand Slam finalist Casper Ruud in the final, 6-4, 6-4. He'd lost his past 4 finals.
I came into Mexico not feeling my best and, just kept on telling myself to keep putting myself out there, keep giving myself chances, and I think today by far I played my best match of the tournament.
It's the Demons' eighth singles title on tour. Aussie favourite Sally Fitzgibbons has finished agonisingly short of booking a spot for the Paris Olympics. The 33-year-old's fierce national pride was on full display after she won the ISA World Games in Puerto Rico.
It feels amazing. I'm just so proud to be Australian, and everyone back home, I just love you so much. Thanks for the support, and gave it everything.
Isn't she great? But it sadly wasn't enough. Australia finished runner-up in the teams portion of the contest to Brazil, who snared an extra Olympic spot. But she'll always be one of my faves, Sal.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Abs. A community in the western part of the United States has been overrun by tumbleweeds. The dried weeds were kicked along by heavy wind, piling up and engulfing homes in Utah. Blizzards and powerful wind gusts have hit the region in recent days, including in neighbouring Nevada, in a system of wild weather. It's coming up to 4:30. These are this afternoon's top stories.
Alistair Clarkson's been forced to apologise after blasting 2 St Kilda.
It followed an ugly on-field bump on North captain Jai Simpkin. Also ahead, questions over the future of John Pesutto's leadership. And live details on the limited maternal...
Live from Melbourne, this is 7 Afternoon News with Mike Amor and Rebecca Maddern.
Welcome back to this special edition of 7's Afternoon News. I'm live from Melbourne's Inner West, and we'll have more details soon on some of the major issues shaping these booming suburbs.
But first, Alistair Clarkson's been forced to apologise over an explosive outburst at 2 St Kilda players. It followed an ugly on-field bump that left Jai Simpkin concussed just before quarter time in North Melbourne's practice game against the Saints yesterday. Alistair Clarkson released a statement saying this was an exchange that was emotional in defence of our captain, but unnecessary, and the language I used was inappropriate. I have reached out to Ross Lyon and both the St Kilda players to apologise. We'll have more details on this developing story coming up tonight at 6. John Pesutto has batted away claims his leadership is on the line despite 2 senior advisors quitting in 24 hours. The opposition leader is confident he has the support of his party.
I had a really productive meeting with my colleagues this morning. We're working well together, and we know that Victorians need new leadership in this state. They're not getting it from Jacinta Allen.
Mr Pesutto has denied claims his party is gathering numbers to boot him from his position. Premiers and chief ministers have begun the contest to determine which states and territories King Charles could visit if he continues with plans to travel to Australia. It's been more than a decade since a reigning monarch was in the country. Ben Downey has more.
Good afternoon. If King Charles is fit enough to make the journey, it will be the first time in 13 years Australia plays host to our head of state. Anthony Albanese has confirmed he's preparing for a potential visit toward the end of the year, beginning discussions with states and territories this week to sketch out which location should be on the royal tour. This is despite the 75-year-old's recent cancer diagnosis that has seen him pull back on public duties as he undergoes treatment, something the Prime Minister addressed today, saying the King has shown compassion for Australians affected by recent natural disasters, just as Australians have shown compassion and support for the King following his diagnosis. The King, Queen and members of the royal family are always welcome in Australia. All states and territories will be vying for coveted spots on the itinerary, but only a few will be successful. Some pitches have already begun.
Why wouldn't you come here? What a great place to visit. We are the cultural and sporting capital of Australia. I know Victoria would warmly welcome King Charles III and Queen Camilla to Victoria.
The timing of the visit is far from being locked in, but it's expected to be around October, when the Commonwealth heads of state are due to meet in Samoa.
A BMW driver has been filmed behind the wheel using his mobile phone with his feet out the window. His passenger appeared to be laughing before pleading with him to stop.
Scott, come on! I'm just driving the car. What do you mean? I'm a good driver. Safe driver.
Police say they're looking into the incident.
As the population booms in our western suburbs, new mothers are struggling to get appointments in some maternal health centres. Let's bring in Lisa Fitzpatrick from the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Federation. Lisa, appreciate your time today. Look, we know that a lot of industries have been hit with staff shortages recently, but just how important are maternal child health services?
Look, they're critical services for young families, but also new families and families. It's the one area of support. It's the one constant. And of course, it's not just about caring for newborn babies, but it is support for the whole family. And importantly, in Victoria, our maternal and child health nurses do a very large proportion of the work in relation to supporting families through family violence issues.
Lisa, Melton has reportedly scaled back its services and has 5 vacancies, while Brimbank is prioritising infants under 12 months. Are families in these areas being put at risk by these workarounds?
Look, I think because they are prioritising, Beck, they're not being put at risk, but the service isn't. It's not good enough, particularly for, somewhere like Melton, where it's, the fastest growing local government area in all of Australia, and Brimbank is shortly behind it. They've got incredible birth rates compared to other parts of the state of Victoria, and we need to be focusing our, every support that we can to have more maternal and child health nurses who are a part-time workforce. So I think incentivising our maternal and child health nurses in relation to working more than their average 3 days a week may go some way. But we can also integrate our maternal and child health nurse services better with our maternity services and our school services, so that we've got a more streamlined approach to caring for children and supporting families throughout those first years of those very critical years of life.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Are they operating as separate entities at the moment, Lisa?
Very much so. They're attached to local governments. We have over 70 local government areas in Victoria. During the height of COVID, we saw a sharing of resources so that others could help out in those really, really busy local government areas. But I do think this stop-start is problematic in relation to continuity of care for mums, babies and the families.
Sure. Appreciate your time, Lisa Fitzpatrick from the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Federation. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
6 people armed with machetes break into a home in Melbourne's west. Next, the moment neighbours rush to help. Also, the mission to save 2 hikers in trouble on the state's tallest mountain. What's driving Australia's obesity crisis, with more than 6 million people now considered overweight?
And our special coverage of Melbourne's booming west continues.
3 people have been threatened and a car's been set alight following a home invasion in Melbourne's west. 6 people armed with machetes broke into the Werribee property just before midnight.
I saw that it was on fire, and all this has a wood, right? So it immediately catches the fire. So I was just trying to wet this area so that it doesn't spread. I'm really scared, and even the entire family got scared yesterday, and everyone was in panic.
The thugs are still on the run this afternoon. One of the residents was hurt but didn't need to go to hospital. 2 hikers have been winched to safety after they got lost on Victoria's highest mountain. The police air wing came to their aid on Mount Bogon around 12 hours after they called 000 when the terrain became too hard to navigate. The men aged 63 and 71 weren't injured.
Well, returning now to our special coverage on Melbourne's booming west, and we are looking at the importance of building strong communities as well as infrastructure. Joining me now is Councillor Cookland, the Mayor of Maddern. I really appreciate you making the time to come to join us today. What's it like living here in the west for you?
Well, as a refugee immigrating here in 1978, I found the West is amazing. I love the West and couldn't go anywhere. It's my home. So it's my second home. And I'm living here until then.
Yeah. And what made you want to be a councillor and then successful as mayor?
My passion is love to work with community and listen and try to help them in the way that people unable to communicate or unable to raise their issues. So I would love them and supporting a multicultural community.
Well, speaking of issues, we've got a lot to talk about in the booming west at the moment with a lot of roads developments, obviously, and a little later in the bulletin we'll be talking about a new housing development as well here in Yarraville. Is enough being done to cater for this huge population growth?
Well, it's never enough, but as you know, the Melbourne area is landlocked. We just can't expand land, but we make the most possible for the community, like service, open space, and many recreation for the people who live here and work here and enjoy.
You yourself obviously said you're a refugee. How important is it that Melbourne embraces and supports the multicultural communities, particularly here in the West, but dotted all over Melbourne?
Well, over Melbourne, I can talk in Melbourne area. We are a welcoming zone for refugees, and we have a multicultural community. It's a culture, tradition, and that's why we always supporting a multicultural. We have a long history to supporting a multicultural community, and we do have a number of events during the year. It's a festival, the Refugee Weeks, and Harmony Week. So a lot of events. We just, recently have, week by week events.
If you had a magic wand and you could make anything happen overnight as mayor, what would you make happen?
That's an easy question and a hard question. I would love it. I love more resource, more money.
More money, there we go. Everyone wants more money.
And something for cater for everybody, happy and enjoyable in their home.
Yeah, well, it does seem like certainly a wonderful place and happy place to live. Thank you very much for joining us, Mayor, on the show today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
On World Obesity Day, there's new data showing an extra 2.5 million Australians have been classed as obese. More than 6 million Aussies now fit the criteria compared to a decade ago. Weight problems are linked to over 30 diseases, including 17 types of cancers. The Food for Health Alliance is calling for stronger advertising laws to deter children, in particular, from making unhealthy choices. A social media campaign has been launched to protect free sport for all Australians. 7 West media stars are highlighting a key mistake in the federal government's proposed changes to anti-siphoning laws. They would protect Australians watching free sport on a broadcast TV, but not through an app.
We're Aussies. Of course, I want as many people as possible to see iconic sporting events for free.
We're Aussies. Of course, sport should be free for all Australia.
Free TV Australia also wants changes so iconic Aussie sporting events don't disappear behind a paywall.
A major development in Melbourne's inner west is promising hundreds of new homes. Next on 7 News, we're at the site of the old denim factory as construction gets underway. And Jane Bunn will join me live with the latest analysis on Melbourne's weather.
We're giving away 2.5 million Qantas points.
Let's do the maths. That's enough for 7 return flights between Sydney and LA in first class, or 8 return trips between Melbourne and London in business class.
Also, earn an extra 7 days of leave per year.
They're called offset days. We'll show you how it works.
Start with Sunrise.
A major development in Melbourne's inner west is making room for thousands of residents just 7 kilometres from the city. Ainsley Kosh visited the site of the former Brad Mills denim factory as construction gets underway.
Well, almost 1 million people now call Melbourne's West home, and now an exciting project is underway to cater for a growing population in this part of Melbourne. It's called Brad Mill Yarraville, and I'm joined by the Development Director, Theo Della Bosca. Theo, just tell us a bit about this exciting development.
Brad Mill Yarraville is a historic development located approximately 7 kilometres from the CBD, rich in amenity, and the intention is to tie it into the surrounding community via a half a kilometre long open space corridor tying into Mackay Reserve to the east. And when complete, the heritage buildings on site will be converted for amazing residential spaces for the benefit of future residents. There's no other project like it.
How many residents will this project cater for, and when can they start to move in?
When complete, approximately 3,000 residents will call Brad Mill Yarraville home, and they'll first be able to move into this amazing project in the third quarter of 2025.
What's demand been like for the project so far?
To this point, and we haven't even launched the project yet, we've had over 2,500 inquiries for the possible purchase of homes and apartments in the project.
And in terms of the scale of the project, what is included in this? It's mixed use, retail and housing, isn't it?
Yes, it's a full mixed use project incorporating a neighbourhood activity centre which will have a full line supermarket, specialty retail, child mining centre, community facilities, restaurants, local retail. It'll have a mixture of apartments and townhouses, and the project itself will house approximately 3,000 residents in the future.
Thanks so much, Theo. Theo Della Bosca there, the Development Director of Brad Mill Yarraville. We'll have all the details about this exciting project in 7 News at 6 o'clock.
Ainsley, thank you. Let's check in with the traffic centre now for the latest on Melbourne's roads.
Good afternoon, it's James in the Tasman Butchers traffic chopper. We're currently over the Westgate freeway where there's been an incident just before Williamstown Road in the outbound lanes. The second left-hand lane and a middle lane is currently closed as Vic Road set up their cones and get it ready to be towed away. Delays are pushing all the way back to the Domain Tunnel. Tasman Butchers source directly from local farmers and prepare their meat fresh in store every day. For the widest range of quality cuts at the best value, visit tasmanbutchers.com.au. Have a great afternoon.
Jane Bunn's analysing the weather in Yarraville. And Jane, Melbourne's west will face the brunt of the heat this week.
Mike, we heat up when winds turn northerly, and thanks to the geography around Melbourne, it is suburbs west of the city that feel it the most. Today was all about a southerly wind, so it only reached 21 despite the lovely sunshine. Patchy morning cloud cleared to bright blue sky, and if you could get out of the wind, it felt very warm. Conditions heat up tomorrow as the wind changes direction. The patchy morning cloud was only over southern Victoria. By the afternoon, there was barely a cloud statewide. We are definitely at the bottom of the temperature roller coaster. Parts of the north only just reached 30. That was the highest we could go in this weather pattern. In the next week, there is a lot of rain coming to northern and western parts of the nation as a driver called the MJO visits the Australian tropics. Low pressure turns that moisture into rain, and all the lows are stalled over in the west of the country. Meanwhile, we have high pressure encouraging dry weather. The location of the centre of the high is the big factor in how warm or cool it is. Today, that centre is back over to our west, and that brings us that cooler southerly. From tomorrow, the high is out to our east. That flicks our winds northerly, letting it rapidly heat up. It has a big impact. Tomorrow's weather in Melbourne should be 10 degrees higher than today. The cool change arrives on Wednesday. Now, this one isn't strong. There's nothing chilly about the cooler air that follows. And we don't need to wait long again until it heats up with extreme heat as we go into the long weekend. Around the nation tomorrow, it's currently snowing on the New Zealand Alps. Sydney gets the large waves from that weather system, but not the chill. Adelaide and Perth are warm and sunny. Brisbane is showery. To Victoria, all dry on a warm to hot and generally sunny day. Just some brief and wispy high cloud. Temperatures jump up in light to moderate northerly winds, with only weak afternoon coastal sea breezes. In Melbourne, it drops to 11 overnight, and that is ahead of a warm to hot Tuesday. In the city, we should reach a top of 31 in the sunshine, and most western suburbs, like where we are now, should be a few degrees higher, 32, maybe 33. Hot again on Wednesday before a cool change during the afternoon. I'll have more at 6, Mike.
Yarraville's looking splendid. Jane, thank you. Coming up in 7 News at 6 o'clock with Peter Mitchell, whistleblowers sound the alarm on a scandal that's putting thousands of koala lives on the line. The latest on a $200 million bin fight between Melbourne councils and ratepayers. And we're live to the Melbourne Fashion Festival as Elle Macpherson's prepare for her runway return. It's all ahead in 7 News at 6 with Peter Mitchell. And that's all from Melbourne's afternoon news. Thanks for joining us.
And for now, from the 7 News team, please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye from Yarraville.
Stream 7 News live and on demand on 7plus and stay informed on 7news.com.au. Nobody knows news better.